thought as chairman, I only voted for it was a tie.
No?
Okay.
I mean, United States Senate, that's the way it works.
Isn't it, Joe, the chairman's prerogative?
Yeah, I mean.
Just like any member.
Right, but just like any member, yeah.
He must not want me voting on the other one, because on the others don't not vote.
No, I know of nothing that takes away your vote.
If it's controversial, you don't have to get involved unless it's a tie.
That's right.
That's right, you can always use that excuse. I'm the chairman, so I'm not going to vote. Of course, if it's a tie, then you're on the spot.
All right, are we ready? It's past time. We do have two on phone already. Well, it is 10 o'clock and we will call the meeting to order. Those on the phone, could you announce your name just for the record? Anybody on the phone?
Mike Yeager.
Thank you, Mike, for being on the phone for us.
Avery Downs.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate you being on the phone as well.
Yes, sir.
And first thing is to, I guess, to welcome you guys. I don't know if I should welcome you or not. I wasn't at the last meeting, and I was telling everybody I may have to object to some of the minutes in here. Y'all took a vote without me being here. But I appreciate the confidence. Commissioner, I appreciate you leading this board, and I think we'll have a moment for you in a little bit, but appreciate the opportunity to be here with you guys. First order of business is to approve the agenda. I'll take a motion to approve that.
So moved, Mr. Chair. Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Niles and a second over here. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. The agenda is approved. We'll now take a minute to review the minutes, and at the appropriate time, I will take a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved. Second.
The sheriff has moved and the commissioner has seconded. Any discussion on the minutes? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. The minutes are approved.
And you're official then.
Sheriff, I heard you had a lot to do with this. We'll talk later.
I did notice it says review of the August 18th minutes. I think those are the October minutes that
Thank
we
you.
actually approved.
So just to clarify, I believe that motion and that second was to approve the October 20th minutes that are in front of us. Is that correct, Sheriff and Commissioner?
Yes, sir.
All right, well,
Yes,
we'll
sir.
stand with the vote based on that. Okay. Commissioner, we'll call on you, and I just want to make sure everybody here saw the esteemed award that you got this week. So we're very proud to have Commissioner Nell be identified by Governor Deal and honored with the outstanding contributions in the 2016 Public Safety Award. So congratulations on that, and well deserved.
Thank you, Commissioner. You know, when I was writing that nomination, I had no idea they really accept. No, I appreciate it. I've been blessed to work with and for good people. So before I start my remarks, I think if it appeases the board, if we could have a moment of silence in memory not of just the two Peach County officers, but certainly the ones in Americus, and think about the times we're in. But I think it would be appropriate if we just take a moment of silence for them, please. Very good, thank you. Speaking of the times we're in, it is troubling, quite candidly, to think that these are the very individuals that our officers are going out and visiting with every day in the field. At any given time, they can walk in on a situation like that. I'm reminded, unfortunately, of not too long ago in Cobb County when we went out to a particular offender, and as early as that day, we were working to get him in mental health treatment, and then that's the same offender that's trying to kill the very officers that we're working to address his needs. So I would always ask you to keep all staff, but certainly our officers, in your thoughts and prayers as they go about their dangerous work. At this time, I would like to call, I'll still call Commissioner Bryson. If you would come forward, and if you want your better half too, that's perfectly fine also. He acknowledges you as the better half, by the way. And I'm going to ask Scott Maurer and Sandra Thomas to come up. And Homer, we have a resolution I'll read to you on behalf of the board. Whereas, as a result of interagency coordination and collaboration, the Georgia Department of Community Supervision commenced operations on July 1, 2015 through the passage of House Bill 310 and was founded on the tenets of public safety and progress. Through his commitment to public safety and unwavering dedication to meaningful criminal justice reform, Homer Bryson received the Board of Community Supervision's unanimous vote to serve as its inaugural chairman. Homer Bryson's insightful, thoughtful, and careful leadership to the Board of Community Supervision provided a burgeoning agency with a firm foundation and positioned the department as a future leader in the field of community supervision. Homer Bryson is a lifelong public servant whose deep passion for Georgia has led him to serve as prestigious leadership posts throughout the state. Despite his many commitments, Homer prioritizes his family, cultivates lasting friendship, and is a highly esteemed citizen in the Hall County community. Be it now thereby resolved, the undersigned members of the Board of Community Supervision desire to commend the distinguished career of Mr. Homer Bryson for his outstanding service to the Georgia Department of Community Service and the employees thereof, so awarded this 15th day of December 2016.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you, Homer. Absolutely. And we are in the process of getting this framed, so I will get it to you. And if I could take a moment, I personally want to thank Homer. We joke about when DCS was formed from Department of Corrections, and Homer one time said it was an amicable divorce, and I told him, but he still owes us some child support. But he, since day one, was doing everything that was in not just the best interest of DCS or Department of Corrections, but what was in the best interest of the state of Georgia. And he worked as a sounding board for me. I hope he can still be there as a sounding board. And Homer, in your new role over GEMA, I want to let you know we are praying for a calm winter.
Us too.
And we thought you'd appreciate that. Thank you, Homer.
Thank you
Lisa,
very much.
thank you for being here.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate the board. Thank you for your support.
The other things, Commissioner Dozier, congratulations on your appointment, December 1, as Commissioner, Department of Corrections. I don't think Commissioner Fitzgerald is here today with us, but her new role as Commissioner of Behavioral Health. And I wanted to publicly thank her and her staff. Unfortunately, our Thomasville office several months ago had caught fire, and it was inhabitable. And what makes it really unique is we had a day reporting center program operating out of that office. So what the role her agency played at the time, we were allowed to move into a portion of the Southwest Hospital in Americas and stand up our DCS office, but more importantly, stand up a day reporting center that provides service to 100 participants, and it was done within a week's time. And we could not have done it without behavioral health. So it goes a step further from just the facility. These are 100 participants that were able to continue in their treatment and the recovery, whereas otherwise we would have nowhere to turn. So I just wanted to publicly thank her as well as behavioral health. I wanted to congratulate Assistant Commissioner Scott Maurer. Last week he was in Colorado at National Institute of Corrections. He completed the Executive Leadership course that's endorsed and put on by National Institute of Corrections. He wanted me to feel sorry for him. He sent a picture when it was 3 below zero out there. And I said, well, that's okay. Just look at the good side. But Scott, I wanted to publicly commend you on that. That's well deserved. I know you put a lot of hard work into that. We do have 2 upcoming presentations at American Probation Parole Association. In February, they'll be on our technology and utilization of our technology, as well, I can't remember the other one. Georgia Prison Reentry Initiative, thank you. So we have 2 presentations we'll be giving at the national forefront, and I'm honored to say that we will also be receiving an award there, a public safety award for our Day Reporting Center and Day Reporting Center Light programs. I wish we at DCS could take credit for that. I think we got the staff that was involved, but it was really under the leadership at Corrections where Day Reporting Centers really flourished and proved to be very successful. So they are just as deserving of this award, Commissioner Dozier, and I wanted to certainly make you aware of that. Speaking of Day Reporting Centers, we have a pretty small budget proposal that we presented to OPB, and they have approved it, and it is now before the governor, and it consists of 2 day reporting centers, one to be placed in Gwinnett County and one to be placed in the Alcovey Judicial Circuit. So those are 2 budget requests. The other budget request is 5 community coordinator positions that were previously grant funded. We'll be asking for those requests. So that is dealing with our budget submission. We have no legislative initiatives or introductions outside of what comes from the Criminal Justice Reform Council. I think they are still working. They had a meeting earlier this week, and I believe they have another one scheduled. So we too are waiting to see recommendations from that. If there are no other questions, issues, concerns from the board, that completes my remarks, and certainly wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you and your families.
Any questions?
Very good, thank you.
We'll move on to the committee reports. David, if you would, community supervision.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. I'll be brief in my comments this morning. Yesterday and today, we actually were visited by the Deputy Commissioner of Parole and their Associate Deputy Commissioner of Parole from California, and they were interested in our community supervision as far as virtual offices, technology that we're using here in Georgia, the way ahead, our training unit, succession planning, DRC, and reentry, as well as family involvement. And we kind of delved into that, and they were really interested in our approach as far as the one officer, one family, one community. So it was a very fruitful visit, and they're actually today at the DRC in Dawsonville, as well as going by the training unit at Gypstick. So very good visit and meeting and good collaboration. We're still working closely with DFACS as well as domestic violence. Jennifer Thomas and I have met several times and actually intend to meet this afternoon following this meeting. So we'll be holding a joint meeting with DFACS where we'll be connecting our liaisons to one another throughout the community, and also have another reentry meeting. And that is all that I have to report at this time, unless there are any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Morris? I see no questions, David.
Thank you, sir.
Reentry Services Unit, Mark Morris. While Mark's walking up, I want to throw it on him. Okay. Commissioner Fitzgerald will not be able to make it, so we'll see her at the next meeting. But appreciate Mark. Me and Commissioner Nell did a little flip-flop on some positions, so we were blessed to get Jay Sanders with us. But then, unfortunately, we lost Mark. But congratulations, we miss you already, and I'm just glad you're still one of our partners as far as these 2 agencies go. So
I appreciate that,
your
Commissioner.
presentation, and we always appreciate your friendship and everything you've done for us.
Absolutely. I'm the one that's blessed for 26 years with the Georgia Department of Corrections. It's been a family for me. It's kind of like a homecoming because I spent most of my years with probation, and all these guys here with DCS used to be my friends and really my family at probation. So it's kind of a homecoming for me, and thank you very much for those words. And I will also keep my comments brief. I just want to give you some numbers on reentry and give you some data on how many people we're actually reaching. So when I talk about in-reach services, what I mean by that is how many folks how many returning citizens did we in reach go into the facilities and provide services for? And then how many did we outreach once they get released on the probation officer and community officer caseloads? And we've, so far since October 2014, we've actually provided services to 5,500 returning citizens and growing. We're so far through January through September 2016 of this year, we've already reached 2,700, and we expect that number to be over 4,000 by the end of this year. We've made over 10,300 contacts since October 2014, and so far, January through September of this year, we will have made over 5,800 contacts. And one other thing I want to mention is through our healing communities, we have 375 Stations of Hope. You may be familiar with what the Stations of Hope are, but it's a network of congregations across the state that provides yet more safety nets for those returning citizens that are released. So that's my report out for this morning.
Any questions for Mark today?
Mr. Chair, if I could ask one question.
Yes, sir, Commissioner, what would you like?
I would like to ask him to explain or clarify, what does a contact mean?
Well, a contact for, we have in-reach coordinators and community coordinators. A contact actually can mean that in-reach coordinator goes into a facility, has a face-to-face conversation with that inmate at the time. A contact can also mean once they're released and on a caseload, a community caseload, that they're interacting that way. We also have community coordinators that reach out to the community to provide more resources for our returning citizens. That contact could also mean that community coordinator has made a contact with somebody in the community to help us provide services for those offenders.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions?
The numbers that you shared, that include probation and parole as well?
That includes the officers that's in the field, that's on those returning citizens that are on those case loads. Those are included in this number.
So
We have I'm sorry, sir.
So just making sure, I think you answered it, but that is probationers and parolees, y'all.
It is probationers and parolees, yes, sir.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mark.
Yes, sir.
Field services, Mr. Kraft. Mr. Kraft's not here.
Good morning. Mike's in a deer stand right now. He's on leave, so he asked me to report out. Well, he was going to be here, but he was told to go ahead and continue his leave.
You could have said something different, Harrison.
Well, I thought most people in the room appreciate hearing it. Mike's working very hard, and he just needed a break. So. Commissioner Nail already talked about the presentation that Mike will be giving along with Renee Sneed at the APPA conference on the Georgia PRI that's coming up next month. We're moving right along with our enhanced supervision, and one thing that we can do is we hope that it will not only enhance how we supervise probationers and parolees, but it should enhance officer safety because it establishes a better relationship with the people we supervise. We got the 6th cohort trained. We got and 164 have been trained to date. By May, we should have 2 master trainers to continue delivering it to the entire department. We have expanded or growing our forensic peer mentoring program. We've got 4 forensic peer mentors in 3 locations, and we're adding 3 more next month. We've done some research on medically assisted treatment for opioids and abuse, and the group will be reporting out to Commissioner Nail next week. We've also been working with accountability courts to identify efficiencies to be gained where DRC lights are located. And we participated in a housing work group or focus group with several other entities that made a number of recommendations to the Criminal Justice Reform Council, and they have approved and will recommend that the further consideration be given to most of those recommendations. The ones that directly affect DCS, is they're asking us to come up with a compliance certificate to issue to probationers and parolees so they can use that to show that they're in good standing on their supervision when they go to apply for housing. They also are recommending that InReach be expanded to all correctional facilities, and that we open access to the reentry partnership housing and transitional housing for offender reentry list, and increase participation and add that to accountability court participants, and also supporting expanding reentry partnership housing geographically so we have more locations throughout the state instead of just in a few cluster areas. And then next month we're meeting with Department of Family and Children Services, Child Protective Services Unit. The field is meeting with their personnel to expand our MOU to have a joint collaboration in the cases that we supervise mutually. So that's all I have. If you have any questions.
Any questions?
Here, could I ask one clarifying question that I've asked
Sure.
every time? Is how many of our participants or our officers have body cameras?
Well, that's part of our enhanced supervision. We have 135 issued to date, and we have 24 of the officers trained so far, and the training's ongoing. So it's that process is picking up some speed.
That's great because of the safety issue, and of course you've seen the capture of the Livonia officers. So I just want to make sure those guys and ladies that's going out in the homes are having that so that they can capture just in case something goes south.
Yes, sir, we're implementing that right now.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you.
Georgia Commission on Family Violence report out, Ms. Thomas. Lou?
Thank you for having me today. It's nice to meet you and welcome to this new position that you have. I look forward to working a bit more closely with you here at DCS and then also at Department of Corrections as we do work to reach into the prisons to support victims of domestic violence that are currently there. A couple updates I have for you. As it is now the middle of December, we've started looking back at the number of domestic violence-related homicides in our state for 2016. We'll do a deeper dive in January to make sure that we feel confident with the number that we have, but so far this year there have been 96 deaths attributed to family violence in our state. And of those 96, 50 of those were their primary victims. So far this year, we've had 12 incidences of murder-suicide in our state. We're really pleased that we were able to get a small grant from CJCC through the increased VOCA funding to study murder-suicide trends in our state a little bit more closely. This number is higher percentage-wise than what we saw last year, and we've been seeing this uptick for the last 4 years. So we want to study that a little bit more. And then, as we know, the officers in Americus this last week were killed responding to an incident of family violence. So those two individuals are also included in that total number of 96 individuals who've lost their lives as a result of family violence. Because we know it's more than just the primary victim that oftentimes loses their lives. I want to just highlight one area of work that we're doing specifically within the commission is we are updating the rules and regulations for our family violence intervention programs across the state. That's a program where offenders or family violence are ordered to attend a 24-week program. Those rules were last revised quite a bit ago, and so we are partnering with DCS Legal and the AG's office to work with us to update those rules and regulations. Currently, there are 112 certified family violence intervention programs in our state. This year, as you reflect back on your year, you look at the areas that you're really proud of, and this is one that I'm really proud of our staff and proud of our partnership with DCS that we have been able to do some meaningful site visits to these programs. We have conducted 28 site visits in 2016, and that's with a part-time contractor. So we have been able to achieve that with a part-time person. And of those 28 site visits, we've issued 26 notices of deficiencies. So there's some room for opportunities there in our 112 programs to strengthen their programs, and we want to help them do that. So far this year, we have recertified 50 programs that are in the process of recertifying 24 programs right now for recertification. So the rule update is being informed by what we're seeing when we do site visits and what we're noticing in the notice of deficiencies and what we're noticing in our programs from across the state. So I want to just publicly appreciate Mark Guzzi for helping us with this project. And we know that it's going to be a 8 to 9 month process, and Barbara has already helped us along the way, so the support is great. The legislative issue that the commission will be working on for this next legislative session is, I think, a relatively easy one, but then you say that and you're like, whoa, is anything easy? But we are, at the request of the governor, moving our term limits for our commission members from a 2-year term to a 3-year term to be more in alignment with other state boards and state commissions. We are a really large commission. We have 37 members. And so that's a lot of work for the governor every 2 years to make appointments and reappointments. And so at the governor's office request, we are moving to change our statute. We're also going to be moving to change in that statute that was created in 1992 that calls for advocates for battered women to be on the commission. We're enhancing or really changing that language to make it more inclusive of all victims of domestic violence. So that we're proposing a reflection to say that we want advocates that advocate for all victims of family violence, knowing that that's people who are working with child witness survivors, people who are working across the spectrum for individuals that are suffering from family violence. And then I just want to in this room publicly acknowledge the DCS officers that I had a chance to do a ride-along with in the Enoda Judicial Circuit a couple months ago. Actually, it's been a month and a half ago, I think. I was transformed by that experience, the same as I was when I stepped into the prison and did support groups with women who are victims of domestic violence there. I'm from North Georgia, and I think I knew the level of poverty that is in North Georgia, but not until I stepped into the homes of some of these individuals did I fully grasp what that poverty looks like. So this partnership with DCS and family violence is it's important work that we're doing together, and so I look forward to moving ahead. The officers, both that I rode along with, in addition to being fine officers, are both foster parents. And so they are serving our state in multiple ways. And I think they were happy to have me, but they were also happy that the social worker got out of the car at the end of the night. So, but we had a good time together. So that's my report, and I look forward to working with you in the future as we move forward.
Ms. Thomas. Any questions for Ms. Thomas?
Just a comment, I'm very grateful to hear about the funding that CJCC has provided to look at trends and speaking of Americas, you mentioned Americas, I could not help but think about the fatality review report that came out in that concentrated area in South Georgia. Yep. So I encourage us again to continue to think about that as we look at commonalities and data around the state. So it's good to hear about that report.
Great, thank you.
Ms. Thomas, I appreciate your thoroughness of your report. Also, thank you for the reminder of how our employees go above and beyond just not in their daily activities, but in their heart and how they give, not only as a public servant, but as a servant to the community outside of that job. So thanks, appreciate that reminder. Do we have any old business? I do not have any on the agenda, but I'll open that up if we do. I see none and hear none, so we'll move to new business. First on the agenda on that is Commissioner Nell with the proposed board rules for initial adoption.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. The board should have received all of the synopsis as well as the proposed rules for adoption. Before we get into those, just a few things of familiarization. When SIMPAC was, in essence, disbanded and moved to Department of Community Supervision, it seems like it's a long time ago, and it was about a year and a half ago. I think what sometimes we forget is during that first year, Mr. Drolet will attest, I hope, that as soon as the bill was passed, we realized there were problems with it also. So we had to basically sit still. We did make movement in areas, but basically we had to sit still for a year. And then when new legislation was introduced to correct some of the concerns, it wasn't until July that we actually, what I would say, took full ownership of misdemeanor oversight. So when you see these rules that are before you, it's been a pretty fast-paced work. And I want to commend Barbara Neville, James Knox, certainly Joe Drolet, Tina Piper, as well as the entire AG's office, who has been with us each step of the way. And for lack of a better phrase, they held our hand through this process as a new agency. So we are very, very appreciative of that. I also wanted to remind the board that there is an advisory committee that was worked through and with on these proposed rules. Advisory committee that's made up of judges representing state court, magistrate court, municipal court. I know I'm leaving somebody else out. Also a criminal defense attorney and a representative from private probation as well as a representative from public probation. So the advisory board had an opportunity to help establish these rules. Some came over from SIMPAC. Some were deleted that were previously with SIMPAC, and some new ones were created. So I kind of wanted to share with you what brought us to this point. The other thing is to reinforce our goal and our focus. I know at DCS, one of the things we talk about is we want to focus on winning instead of focusing on not losing. And there's a big difference. There's been a lot of time and energy in these proposed rules that focus on the sanctioning process. And while that is absolutely important, what we would love to see at DCS is there never be one sanction at all. Because I think the goal is improving the industry, improving upon the accountability, and working together. That's where I think our focus should continue to be. Instead of so much of what might happen, let's focus on what we can do to prevent what might happen. So I just wanted to share that with you. Additionally, there are going to be, you were provided a addendum this morning. There will be 3 changes made to the proposed rules. That 2 were, well, I think all 3 may be at the request of the AG's office that were quite candidly oversight on our part. There are definitions that are added that define commissioner, definition defining governing authority, and 1 rule correction that was misnumbered. So you'll see those addendums there. And what I would ask, if it is pleasing to the board, is that a motion be made to entertain the adoption of these rules en masse as presented, unless there is specific discussion in which the board would want to entertain a change or a discussion, which we are certainly prepared to do that through James Knox and Barbara Neville in the Attorney General's office.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, can I Excuse me just a sec. The Rules Committee met this morning. We approved the rules with one change. And the change was in the amount of the fines, and the judge can change it, but we recommend the rules be passed with that one change that was done this morning that did not probably get under this list.
And we did not make that change. We were aware of it. We did not make that change because it was different and it was substantial and different than what was presented to the board. So that's exactly why we felt it would be better here than to make that change.
Steve, do you mind, before we move into any type of motion, explaining a little more about the change? I was privy to that you guys were discussing the $10,000 fine and the potential of lowering that, and maybe you can share with the board your thought process on that.
Mr. Mills, would you mind addressing that?
Well, certainly I don't mind it, and as I stated in the subcommittee earlier, I don't have no interest in this whatsoever, other than looking at a fine go from, I think, a maximum that was around 1,000 to up to now 10,000, and it's per violation. And my concern was simply from a business person's point of view, and again, I have no connection financially whatsoever with private probation, but that if you can find somebody up to 5,000 per violation, I just thought that was a gracious plan. I asked at 2 of our subcommittee meetings to get the logic behind the 10,000 and was never responded to in the subcommittee meeting. So the committee, I think, took it up and agreed with it this morning to change it to 5.
Any other discussion on that topic?
If I may, Mr. Chair, I don't think you can give a mathematical equation as to why that number. I think it's no different than the penal code when you say, why did you ask for 5 years for entering an auto instead of 3?
Right.
Well, I don't know. It felt right, but I do know this. The rules that were in SIMPAC with that fine are aged, if you will. But the other thing, I think that there was the request and the expectation that there be very real consequences for violations and sanctions. But I want to share this, and quite candidly, I don't care what the amount is. I really don't, but I do want to make sure we're all of the same understanding. There's a process in place that if the director, in concurrence with me as commissioner, make a recommendation for a sanction, the entity has an opportunity to simply ask the board to review this. Is it in compliance? Do you feel it's too much or too less? By the way, this is up to 1,000. It could be as little as $1, but it's only up to 10,000. So there's that, and then let's say there is what a provider may call a hefty sanction imposed. Even if the board reviews it and says, no, we feel that's appropriate, the provider still has the opportunity to appeal that and go forth with an appeal. And I'll move on a tangent here on the appeal process. We had entertained 3 options. One was contracting an appeal for someone to handle appeals. The second option was to actually use our hearing officers that we have in Department of Community Supervision who are certified as hearing officers to hear the appeal, or to go through the ASO and use an administrative law judge to hear the appeal. And we felt and are confident that going through the ASO, an administrative law judge who's an independent party, has no interest with contracting someone who's going to hear it or internal, is the best way to go. And that is a recommendation I would make when it comes to that point for the board to decide as to who is going to be the appeal authority. So I just wanted to give you a little background on that, Mr. Mills, but you're absolutely correct. I could not sit here and matter-of-factly tell you with some type of equation why $10,000 is picked.
If I may just, Commissioner, one of my concerns in line D is impose a fine or violation fee against the probation entity or individual in the amount not to exceed, of course it was 10,000, we changed it to 5,000, and I just, you know, I have this is not a mountain I want to die on.
Right.
But I just thought 5,000 was a gracious enough penalty and that would still put teeth in it. And then I thought 10,000 to an individual who might have multiple violations
Right.
on one offense. I mean, you could really hurt somebody financially.
I understand, and the logic there, the reason you say individual, there are one company, one individual operators, but also the individuals also covered by the company. Hence the reason those individuals are required by law to be bonded.
So I think we're at a point where we've discussed that, and I think, Mr. Page, I cut you off from making a motion. I'll open the floor now for any motions.
Commissioner Avery, do you want to make a motion or?
Well, I had just one more question or a comment, but it appears that we already have a mechanism in place to deal with the individual that have those hardships, as the commissioner just explained. So with that being said, I will to the floor.
I'm sorry, I missed the last part.
Just yield to the
floor. Okay. But at this time, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we adopt the rules as recommended by the Rules Committee with that one adoption of $5,000.
Steve, can I rephrase that?
Yes,
Please,
sir.
see if you're okay with it. Can we adopt the rules as it's been presented before the board, both the rules as it's presented with this sheet, amending the fine to the 5,000? Would that be appropriate?
Would be appropriate.
Okay.
One thing I would like to point out, the addendum needs an addendum.
Okay.
It should say this is the last line where it's correcting 105-2-21C, it should be G.
So that C should be a G?
That C should be a G.
Okay.
That's referring to the emergency provision, which is in Rule 105-2-21G, which allows the director to do an emergency provision. So it may have sounded like C when they talked about it in the subcommittee, but that's supposed to be G.
So if I could rephrase it, Steve, you tell me if this matches. I believe the motion we have is to approve the rules as they presented, making two changes. One, in the packet of rules, changing item D from a fine of 10,000 per violation to 5,000. And on the addendum, the last item, 105-2-21, changing that C to a G.
And that included that addendum.
And including the addendum. So that's the motion we have on the floor. Do we have a second? I'll second. We have a second. Do we have any discussion? I hear no discussion. At this time, I would take a vote to approve that motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign? Hearing none, I see that being unanimous. I will say this, Commissioner, I appreciate, Steve, I appreciate all the efforts that last few weeks have gone into these rules. I think that Commissioner Homer Bryson was here and he asked the group to kind of dive into it, and I think that the agency, the Attorney General's office and the committee did outstanding work, taking a framework from just a short time of a month ago to a set of rules that quite frankly make me very comfortable, because in the prior service of the Department of Driver Services, that agency oversaw and administered very similar rules to the schools that we regulated. Having said that, I think that as we go through this process, I do think the intention is exactly what Mr. Page and commissioners stated, that the purpose of having these rules is to make sure there's enough teeth to make sure that all our providers are as good as the ones sitting at this table. And so as we move forward, if we see that the fines or see the levies aren't making sense to the board, I would hope that the commissioner and you guys in the industry would bring it to task at the appropriate time. But thank you guys for working together. And I'm really proud, Barbara, wherever you are. Thank you for really leading this and getting us today what you provided. I really do appreciate that.
And I had one other thanks, Becky Dobras.
Yes.
Thank you, Becky. My apologies for the oversight.
She's been working with Carter back and forth.
She has, and I'm aware of your hard work. I apologize as well. Yes.
Very
Do you
good.
have any other new business? Commissioner, do you have anything else?
No, sir, I do not. Again, thank you for the guidance. Wish you all again a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and thank you for your service.
Thank you. Any other new business? All right. Well, I will also tell you to have a Merry Christmas and have a great time with your families and truly enjoy this season. And at this time, I'll take a motion to close the meeting.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Everybody in favor say aye. Aye.